Chapter 904. Gu Mingming pressed her lips gently against Elvis's and did not pull away. She allowed Elvis to take the initiative and deepen the kiss. After a long while, when both of them were short of breath, Elvis finally let go of her. Just as he was about to flip over and press her down to do something indescribable, Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Now you can already resist the fox's seductive fragrance unless I wake it up with a kiss." Elvis was stunned for a moment. Then he felt that the fire in his body seemed to be subsiding bit by bit. That bewitched and irrational feeling gradually returned. His heartbeat returned to normal and his breathing gradually calmed down as well. Looking at Gu Mingming, who was being pressed down by him, Elvis frowned and asked, "What happened?" Gu Mingming smiled and sat up with her arms around Elvis's neck. "I tried the bewitching spell to give you an extra insurance in case someone uses the fox seductive fragrance to abduct you while I'm asleep." Torturous. Elvis clenched his teeth. The fire in his body was forcefully extinguished. He was really annoyed but could not bear to bite her. He flipped over and sat up, hugging her in his arms. Sighing helplessly, he returned to the topic at hand. "You have the purest fox seductive fragrance on you and you've learned the bewitching spell. So when do you plan to treat Sandy?" Gu Mingming rubbed her brows and said hesitantly, "Sandy is pregnant now and it's not suitable for her to travel long distances. If I remove the bewitching spell on her now, she will definitely reveal herself. I'm afraid that Cole will use more violent methods to deal with her next time. So I want to wait until she gives birth before removing the bewitching spell. Then I will send her back to St. Nazaire to avoid Cole." "Will Cole let her go so easily?" Elvis expressed his doubts. Gu Mingming lowered her head and chuckled. "Someone who has been lonely for an entire winter should be coming to find me soon." Elvis thought for a moment and laughed as well. "You want Wabi to escort Sandy back?" Gu Mingming nodded. But Elvis said, "Aren't you afraid that he will eat Sandy when he's in a bad mood?" Gu Mingming shrugged. "I'll just say that Snake asked him to help me protect Sandy. In that case he would rather eat himself than eat Sandy." "All right. With Wabi holding the fort in St. Nazaire, it will be difficult for Cole to extend his hand there." Elvis nodded in approval of Gu Mingming's plan. Leah, however, raised his face and placed his hands behind his back. He leaned his upper body backward and said, "I don't think so." Gu Mingming looked at Leah with a questioning gaze. Leah said, "How could Cole not be prepared for anything that we can think of? I'm afraid that Wabi has already fallen into his trap. Getting Wabi to escort Sandy might be part of his plan." Gu Mingming's heart sank. That's right, how could a person like Cole forget about Wabi? Chapter 905. But Sandy? Gu Mingming was still very worried. Leah pinched Gu Mingming's little nose and said, "Have you forgotten that Cole and I are now in a cooperative relationship? If we want to let bygones be bygones and cooperate seamlessly, we should at least show some sincerity. What do you think?" Gu Mingming frowned, not understanding what he meant. Leah smiled and said, "I will go talk to him and ask him to undo the bewitching spell on Sandy." Gu Mingming was surprised and asked, "He will listen to you?" Leah said, "If he knows that you have the purest fox seductive fragrance and have learned the bewitching spell, even if he does not understand, you can undo it yourself. Do you think he will?" Gu Mingming thought about it and understood Lee's meaning. If Gu Mingming did not have the fox seductive fragrance and did not know the bewitching spell, she would be begging for mercy if she went to Cole. But Gu Mingming now had the purest fox seductive fragrance and had learned the bewitching spell. If she went to Cole now, she would be giving him a chance to show his loyalty. Of course Cole would not give up. Nodding, Gu Mingming asked, "Then what should I do?" Leah swayed his tail and smiled. "Nothing. Giving him a chance to express his loyalty doesn't mean that you have to accept it." Gu Mingming laughed and poked at Lee's brows. "You are so naughty, but I like it." Gu Mingming felt much more relaxed now that she had a direction to resolve Oakley's and Sandy's matters. At dinner time, the three little ones returned to the stone castle after playing around. They were all stunned when they saw Gu Mingming before quickly pouncing into her arms. Gu Mingming looked at the three little ones and her mood strangely improved. The three of them were clearly only slightly over a year old, but in their half-orc state they looked like 8 or 9-year-old kids. They looked young but not like 2 or 3-year-old kids. It was a small pity that Gu Mingming had never seen her own children in swaddling clothes. They had maturity that did not match their age, and this made up for Gu Mingming's other regrets. "Let's go find your mother-in-law and have dinner together, all right?" Gu Mingming was still worried about Sandy. When the three little ones heard this, a trace of resistance and awkwardness appeared on their faces. They took 2 steps back and said with some hesitation, Mom, it's better if you don't go. What? Gu Mingming remembered that they had a very good relationship with Sandy. Huda sighed and replied, Mother-in-law's thoughts are in a mess now. If you go over, you have to be prepared to keep explaining that Qixin is the child of you and Cole, as well as twist the facts to prove that you and Cole are partners. Gu Mingming's head started to hurt too. But Sandy was pregnant now and her mind was sensitive. If she was left alone to let her imagination run wild, it would not be good for her and the fetus. Moreover, she was her first child, so there was no room for any mistakes. Looking at Elvis and Leah, she said helplessly, the scene might be a little awkward. Do you guys want to accompany me? Elvis stood up and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms. I will accompany you. Leah also stood up and patted the dust off his body. Then I will go and see Cole. If I can convince him, I will bring him to Sandy to remove the bewitching spell. Chapter 906. When Gu Mingming arrived at Sandy's house, she saw Bode preparing food for Sandy. Colin was squatting at the door pitifully, turning his head to look into the house from time to time. It was obvious that he had been chased out. When he saw Gu Mingming, Colin was taken aback for a moment before he suddenly stood up and ran over. He looked at Gu Mingming expectantly and asked, Is there a solution? Gu Mingming did not reply and just patted Colin's shoulder. She then jumped down from Elvis's arms and led the three little ones into Sandy's stone house. The males in the house were all very cautious. Sandy sat at the corner of the bed with his face facing the wall, obviously not intending to talk to anyone. Gu Mingming gestured for them to keep quiet. Sandy's males nodded and did not dare to say a word. Gu Mingming walked to Sandy's back and placed her little hand on Sandy's shoulder gently. The moment she touched it, Sandy flung her shoulder fiercely and said angrily, Don't touch me. You liars, don't touch me. Gu Mingming laughed out loud and placed both her hands on Sandy's shoulders. She then leaned close to Sandy's ear and whispered, Who is so daring to lie to my little Sandy baby? Sandy was taken aback. When she turned around and saw that it was Gu Mingming, she finally relaxed and smiled. She turned around and pulled Gu Mingming's little hand to sit beside her. Seeing the three little ones standing in a row with the males in the house, not daring to come close to her, Sandy felt very wronged again. She twitched her lips and said, Even you guys want to treat me like this? The three little ones shook their heads in unison but did not say a word. Gu Mingming chuckled and said, All right, go and play with Uncle Colin. Don't disturb me from chatting with your mother-in-law. The three little ones felt as if they had been pardoned and ran out with a grin. Sandy felt wronged and looked at Gu Mingming with watery eyes. Gu Mingming, what do you think I should do? Why can't I understand some things? Gu Mingming gently smoothed out the frown on Sandy's forehead. Haven't you heard of pregnancy making you stupid for 3 years? Sandy was dumbfounded. Then he nodded, indicating that he had never heard of it before. Gu Mingming smiled and said, You have to give a portion of your intelligence to your babies now. The dumber you are, the more intelligence you give to your babies and the smarter they will be. This is a good thing. It proves that my godson will be clever and lovely children in the future. Oh. Sandy listened to Gu Mingming's nonsense with a serious face and agreed with her. Gu Mingming did not feel guilty for lying to a pregnant lady and continued, What can't you figure out? Ask me. Oh. It's been less than 3 years since I gave birth, and my IQ isn't very high right now, but I'm still willing to use my few remaining brain cells to answer your questions. Say it, what do you want to know? Sandy pursed her lips and said, You and Cole haven't reconciled yet? As expected, everything that Sandy could not understand definitely revolved around Cole. Gu Mingming nodded. I don't intend to reconcile with him. Chapter 907. Gu Mingming pretended to be in deep thought and did not speak for a long while. Looking at Sandy's worried expression, she suddenly smiled and nodded. All right. Since my precious Sandy is pleading for him, I will not abandon him. Cole was not Gu Mingming's partner. Even if she wanted to abandon him, she could not. So Gu Mingming did not lie to Sandy. Sandy heaved a sigh of relief and continued. Gu Mingming, I think I know why you are angry. But I just can't remember why you and Cole fought to the extent that you are not allowing him to return home. Also, Qixin is a wolf and Cole is a fox. Why do I remember that Qixin is your and Cole's child? Gu Mingming chuckled. This is what you can't figure out? Sandy blinked innocently as if waiting for Gu Mingming to clear her doubts. Gu Mingming tilted her head with a smile. I am the daughter of the beast deity. I have the genes of hundreds of beasts in my body. Of course, the children I give birth to will mostly depend on their father's race. But there is also a chance that they will inherit my genes. Huda and his brothers inherited their genes from Elvis, but Qixin inherited mine. Well, who knows, I might have a few little bears with Leah next time. Sandy stared at Gu Mingming in bewilderment. Really? Gu Mingming nodded earnestly. I'm such an awesome person. I'm someone who can fly 90,000 miles into the sky. What? Sandy did not understand. Gu Mingming chuckled. It means that I can fly into the sky at any time and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Sandy burst out laughing. She tapped Gu Mingming's brow and said, I've spoiled your ability. Gu Mingming also laughed out loud. Is there anything else you can't figure out? Ask me all at once. I will answer you. Sandy felt much better now that she had resolved the issue of Cole and Qixuan's relationship. It was as if Gu Mingming had smashed a huge rock that had been pressing down on her heart. She felt much more relaxed. Her tone also became lighter. You still haven't told me why you quarreled with Cole to the extent that you are not allowing him to return home? Gu Mingming thought for a while and said, Ellie, do you still remember? Sandy nodded to show that he remembered. Gu Mingming said in disdain, I found out that he and Ellie had an affair. What? Sandy slammed the table and stood up, glaring angrily at him. Gu Mingming did not doubt that if Cole was standing there, Sandy would rush forward and fight him to the death. Gu Mingming tugged at Sandy's arm and said, calm down, calm down. You're a pregnant woman, so you need to know how to control your emotions. It's not good for the baby to be overjoyed or angry. Sandy gritted his teeth and sat down. How dare he? Gu Mingming shrugged and said, catching an adulterer in bed, used shoes make a pair. I saw it with my own eyes, how can it be wrong? No wonder you were so angry that you didn't want him anymore. How shameless. Sandy was infuriated. She wanted to curse, but she suddenly realized that she had no words to describe her disgust. Gu Mingming patted Sandy's back to calm her down. Now do you know why he only told you that he angered me and asked you to help him plead for leniency, but did not tell you what he did wrong? Chapter 908. Gu Mingming could not stop giggling. This was the difference between Sandy and Oakley. Even if Sandy was hypnotized, Gu Mingming was still the most important person in her heart. Gu Mingming tugged at the indignant Sandy and pointed at Colin with her chin. Now do you understand why they all said Cole is not my partner? Sandy bit her lower lip and nodded. Cole did such a thing and all the males are ashamed of him. They are naturally unwilling to talk about his dirty deeds. Moreover, Colin was once your guard. Even in front of me he still has to protect your image. I misunderstood Colin. Gu Mingming nodded. So, can we let Colin go home now? Sandy blushed. Colin, I am thirsty. I want to drink water. Colin's ears had been pricking up. He was stunned by Gu Mingming's nonsense. Sometimes he almost suspected that Gu Mingming was speaking the truth. So, in terms of bluffing, no one could beat Gu Mingming. When he heard Sandy call his name, Colin gave Gu Mingming a thumbs up in his heart. She was indeed the great messenger. She had a glib tongue and her teeth were as sharp as steel. Coming. Colin used the small bamboo cup that Gu Mingming had given Sandy previously to fill a cup of water and passed it to her. His honest face had a flattering smile and his voice was filled with flattery. Drink slowly, don't choke. Sandy drank a small cup. She then looked at Colin with a red face. This winter, you have suffered. I will make it up to you. Gu Mingming almost choked on her own saliva. Just by looking at Sandy and Colin's expressions, she knew what she meant by, make it up to him. Then I will bring the three little ones back first. I think, you guys should be quite busy too. Gu Mingming felt that she could not stay any longer. Otherwise, what if Sandy and Colin pulled her over to chat while having fun? The beast world was so open to such matters. Sandy would definitely do such a thing. Accompany me for a while more. Sandy held Gu Mingming's little hand and begged. Gu Mingming smiled as she rubbed Sandy's little head. You better accompany Colin. I will return to the territory first. I'll come and see you tomorrow, okay? Sandy glanced at Colin shyly before nodding her head, before reluctantly letting go of Gu Mingming's hand. When Gu Mingming walked past Colin, she patted his shoulder and said earnestly, I know you've been a vegetarian for the entire winter, but Sandy's tummy can't take any more torment, you, be more gentle. With that, Gu Mingming walked out of the cave with a blushing face. Every time this happened, Gu Mingming would resent Snake for giving her a pair of sharp ears. She had already been running all the way, but she still could not shake off the mm sounds behind her. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming running out with the three little ones with a flushed face. Combined with the sounds coming from the cave, he instantly understood what was going on. So he did not ask any more questions and just scooped Gu Mingming into his arms before striding away. When they returned to the stone castle, Leah was squatting at the entrance, resting his chin on his hands as he stared at their way back in boredom. Elvis caught Gu Mingming in tacit understanding and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. He instantly retracted his killing intent and just stared coldly at Cole. Cole was still sitting at the same spot and had no intention of getting up. He just said, "I propose to deal with him. Let me be Leah for a day and I will remove the bewitching spell on Sandy. Then I will never find trouble with her and use her to threaten you again." But Leah rejected my proposal, so I could only use other methods to temporarily keep him in the meeting room. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Susu continued to save chapters with all her might. "I guarantee that you'll die, and I guarantee that you'll die. If you don't die, you'll die for free." Cole chuckled and said, "Ah, so you thought that I gathered them to save my life? Agu, you don't understand me." Gu Mingming frowned and did not comment. Chapter 9:12. No, it's the exact opposite. Cole maintained his usual smile, with a tinge of elegance but more of craftiness and maliciousness, as though everything was within his calculations. He said with certainty and confidence, "It is precisely because I never dared to underestimate Agu that the bewitching spell I placed on Sandy is a dead knot. Unless I personally remove it, otherwise even if I use a stronger power to stack the bewitching spell, it will still trigger the bewitching spell I placed on Sandy and she will die on the spot." Gu Mingming was taken aback. She frowned and her heart twitched. Luckily, she did not recklessly remove Sandy's hypnosis spell today, but came up with a lie to fool her. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. At this point, Gu Mingming's gaze towards Cole was filled with even more hatred. She said coldly, "How can I be sure that you are not lying to me?" Cole seemed to be pondering over this question, but he suddenly smiled and said, "When have I ever lied to the great messenger? When they kidnapped the little wolves, she was the one who voluntarily came to ask for help. He said that Ellie and a 5th-level master kidnapped the little wolves, but he never denied that the master was him. The wound on his chest was caused by Ellie's bite, and it was true that the little wolves were brought back to the Snake King Valley. He had only lured her into the trap step by step, but he had never told her a lie in the real sense. Ah, how could it be so ironic? He was a scumbag who was despised by Gu Mingming to the point of being useless, yet he still had a fine quality of honesty. You schemed so hard to scheme against Sandy just to be Leah for a day? Gu Mingming felt that this was very strange, wasn't it? Cole nodded and said, "I'm just very curious, what made that trash who only knows how to struggle in the mud, bare his teeth and clamor, break free from my shackles? I also want to experience life after letting go of my hatred, and what exactly is left of it." Gu Mingming clenched her fists. Leah had told her before that Cole's interest was not in killing, but in torturing others. She suddenly felt that Jiaoyu's words were too true. A normal person would never win against a lunatic. He would pull you into his vicious thinking cycle, then use his rich experience to defeat you. After all, he was really crazy while you still had your rationality and a bottom line. Gu Mingming leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "If you want to know, you have to let go of your hatred and try. No matter how well you imitate him, you are not Leah. Not to mention one day, even if you were given a lifetime, you would never know what he had and what he had obtained." "Who knows?" Cole chuckled. "I just want to try. Great emissary, are you willing to discuss this deal with me? I will only be Leah for one day. Tomorrow I will completely return Sandy to you." Chapter 9:13. Cole clenched his fists and smiled. "You cannot challenge the authority of the first partner, it is a family rule. I got carried away for a moment, I apologize." Elvis ignored him. Follow the family rules? Cole was not qualified to do so. Gu Mingming returned, but Sandy and Colin's entanglement had not ended. When she walked near them, Gu Mingming's face was full of awkwardness. She was so anxious to hypnotize Sandy that she had forgotten about the matter of compensating Colin. "How about tomorrow?" Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's neck and asked. Elvis knew how worried Gu Mingming was for Sandy, and Cole was a dangerous and uncertain factor. Who knew if he would disappear after saying that he was willing to remove the bewitching spell for Sandy? No need. With that, Elvis shrugged his shoulders and started emitting the pressure of a 5th-level orc. Cole was taken aback at first. Xianxia smiled and rotated his neck, also starting to emit his beast pressure. Gu Mingming did not understand what was going on at first until she saw Colin stumbling out of the stone house. That expression was really amazing. Gu Mingming was even more embarrassed than before. Damn it, would Colin get sick from being forcefully interrupted? This Won't it affect Sandy's happiness for the rest of her life? Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. Elvis did not mind and said, if Colin can't do it, don't we still have Bode and the rest? Don't worry, Sandy will not feel aggrieved. There was such a benefit to having more husbands? There was a backup. Looking at Colin, Gu Mingming said guiltily, Colin, I've wronged you. Elvis did not bother about Colin at all. He estimated that Bode and the rest had cleaned up Sandy and directly walked in. When he passed by Colin, he said, in order to protect Sandy's life, not to mention impotence, even if we skin him alive, he would not even frown. Colin was speechless when he heard Elvis's words. Elvis was stunned. Gu Mingming did not say anything else and just followed Elvis to the door of the stone house. Bode and Sandy's other partners each supported Sandy out. Sandy looked at Gu Mingming with a blushing face and asked shyly, Gu Mingming, are you looking for me? Gu Mingming really felt that it was immoral to interrupt him at this moment, so she was at a loss for words and did not know how to reply. Seeing that Gu Mingming did not reply, Sandy looked to her side and saw Cole. Because she had Cole's bewitching spell on her, Cole's current disguise was ineffective in front of her. Her large, watery eyes immediately lost all traces of innocence. She pulled Gu Mingming from Elvis's arms and used her as a shield. Her bare claws immediately flashed out. She glared at Cole and Elvis with wariness and hatred. Elvis, I didn't expect you to be such a person. My Gu Mingming is really blind. Why did she choose you as her first partner back then? Gu Mingming and Elvis were dumbfounded. Why didn't they scold Cole but Elvis? If it was someone else flashing their claws so arrogantly in front of Elvis today, Elvis would definitely break that person's neck before he could even finish saying his name. However, the person in front of him was someone he couldn't afford to offend. Not for any other reason but because if this crazy bear died, Xiaomeng would definitely be sad. However, he could tolerate her arrogance, but he could not tolerate one thing. You're Gu Mingming? Chapter 9:14. Sandy was usually timid and adorable, but when she got serious she was not weak at all. She was willing to risk her life for Gu Mingming. Disregarding the fact that she was pregnant, she glared at Elvis with a, if you want to touch Gu Mingming, you have to do it over my dead body, attitude, not giving in at all. Bode and Colin were so scared that their calves were cramping up, afraid that Elvis would rashly slap them with his claws. That would be the end of one corpse. But Sandy did not care at all. She stood in front of Elvis and Leah like a mother hen protecting her chicks. Stiffening her neck, she said, yes, it's mine. So what? With that, she pointed a bare claw at Cole and said furiously, this scum did something shameless with Ellie. As Gu Mingming's first partner, why didn't you kill him? You actually allowed him to wander around Gu Mingming and disgust her. From this, it can be seen that you don't care about Gu Mingming at all. Even if you don't cherish her, I will. As long as I, Sandy, have a bite to eat, I will not let my Gu Mingming starve. You two shameless bastards get lost. Elvis's face turned green and white from Sandy's scolding. He gritted his teeth and looked at the little person hiding behind Sandy, who was gloating at his misfortune. Seeing how she was smiling so widely that her eyes were curved into a line but she was still trying her best to hold it in, just like a silent phone with the vibration mode switched on. That smug look on her face instantly extinguished the fire in Elvis's chest. How long had it been since she last smiled like this? It seemed like she had not done any pranks ever since Snake died. He had not seen that sly and mischievous smile on her face for a long time. Just based on that smile, he could tolerate Sandy's scolding no matter how harsh it was. Moreover, although Elvis felt that it was unnecessary, he still treasured the friendship of having one more person who was willing to risk everything to protect Gu Mingming. In the worst-case scenario, even if Sandy did something even more rude today, so what? As long as Gu Mingming still treated Sandy as an important friend, Elvis would not do anything to hurt her. After his anger subsided, Elvis could only smile helplessly. He took a step to the side and circled behind Sandy to carry her in his arms. Then, he signaled Colin and Bode to restrain Sandy, who was about to snatch her from his arms again, with a glance. He then said leisurely, I brought him here today to let you seek justice for Xiaomeng. How do you think we should kill them? Come up with an idea and I'll execute it. Sandy stopped struggling and looked at Elvis quietly, asking, really? Are you siding with that scumbag? Elvis shook his head and said, in this whole world, I will only side with Xiaomeng. That's more like it. Sandy finally heaved a sigh of relief. She then turned around and stared at Cole fearlessly. Chapter 9:15. When had Cole ever been scolded like this before? Although he was not as respected as Big Brother and Leah, he was still the second highness of the Messenger's tribe. who would not be respectful in front of him. Even when his father was still alive, he had never reprimanded him like this. Sandy's scolding was a strange experience for him. He felt that he should be angry, but for some reason he could not be angry. Maybe, was it because he had grasped onto a very important piece of information? Agu, you care a lot about the matter between Ellie and me? Are you jealous? Cole's smile was filled with a sense of contentment. He tilted his head and looked past Sandy, landing his gaze on Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming did not know whether to laugh or cry. She had originally made up a lie to cover up the loophole in the bewitching spell that Cole had placed on Sandy. Now it was hard for her to defend herself. Laughing dryly, Gu Mingming said, "Do what you have to do, don't care about those useless things." But Cole tapped his chin lightly with his finger and said, "But this is the first time I have been scolded in my entire life. After being scolded so harshly, I should at least get to the bottom of it, right? If what she said is true, then I am willing to be scolded. But if she is spreading rumors, why should I save someone who is slandering me?" From what he said, if she did not admit that she cared a lot about the matter between him and Ellie, he would not save Sandy. Gu Mingming was so angry that her teeth were itching, but she did not want to let him have his way. But Sandy could not just leave her be. If she were to overlay the hypnosis, it would cause harm to Sandy's body. Gu Mingming did not want to risk Sandy's safety. After weighing the pros and cons, Gu Mingming decided to say something against her will. She stared at Cole, trying hard to believe that the person in front of her was Leah. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a bare paw smack onto Cole's shoulder. Even Cole staggered from the slap and stumbled to the side. He stared at Sandy with a malicious gaze, his sharp claws and fangs flashing. Almost instantly, he instinctively attacked Sandy. Bode and Colin had been paying attention to Sandy's movements. Naturally, they had long discovered her movements, but it was too late to tell her not to act rashly. Thus, they could only make the most basic defensive response in an instant. Bode pulled Sandy back and protected her in his arms. He turned around and faced his back to Cole. Colin stood in front of Bode and used his own arm to catch Cole. After Colin and Sandy had mated, they were already third-level beasts. In the beast world, they were already considered to be above-average masters. Under normal circumstances, they were more than enough to protect a female. However, under normal circumstances, this did not include fighting against level 5 orcs. Even if Cole was a crippled beast, he had stayed at the peak of 5th level for so long. In addition to that, he had received Sauter's systematic training and had fought many stray beasts in secret. His abilities, if they were to really fight, he would at least be on par with Elvis now. How could a level 3 Colin withstand it? With this slap, Colin's arm immediately folded up in a weird position. It looked like it was fractured. Gu Mingming was taken aback by the sudden turn of events and rushed to Colin 2 seconds too late. Colin was half a step away from Gu Mingming and his nose was almost touching Cole's face to face. Chapter 9:16. Cole was taken aback and immediately retracted his murderous aura. He smiled elegantly as if nothing had happened just now. Rubbing his nose, he said, "I'm sorry, maybe it's because I've been fighting with the Grim Reaper for the past half a year and had an instinctive reaction to being attacked." His gaze landed on Sandy and Cole's eyes darkened. This female, she actually made Agu care so much. What to do? He seemed to be a little jealous. But such an important person had to be saved for the most exciting moment. Smiling, Cole said, "All right, I apologize. Even if you want to punish me, let me remove the bewitching spell on her first. All right?" Gu Mingming took 2 steps back and pushed Bode away with a slap. This fellow was only a 2nd-level beast. Elvis and Cole released their beast pressure at the same time and he was so scared that his legs were trembling. But even so, he still protected Sandy with all his might. This made Gu Mingming's impression of him even better. Bravery was never about being fearless. It was about choosing to stand out to protect her even though you were clearly afraid. Her best friend had the same taste in men as her. Although this first partner was slightly weaker, he was more sincere. Gu Mingming pushed Bode away and held Sandy's little hand, hugging her gently to calm her emotions. Sandy's bare paws slowly turned into chubby little hands as she returned Gu Mingming's grip. But her eyes were still glaring at Cole with hatred, unwilling to back down. Gu Mingming patted her back lightly and said, "All right, my little Sandy baby, don't be angry at him. It's not worth it. It's better to let Elvis handle things like enforcing the family rules. You just help me decide if I should slice him or shred him, braise him or steam him. That'll do." Sandy was taken aback and said, You want to eat him?" Gu Mingming laughed out loud and said, "I don't have such a heavy taste. What I meant was that you just have to help me think of ideas." Leave the physical work to the males. Sandy nodded and said, I also know that I can't beat him, but I can't stand the fact that he dared to speak to you in such a righteous manner after treating you that way. It's so infuriating. Gu Mingming nodded in agreement. That's right, that's right. Seeing that Gu Mingming did not blame her for being nosy, Sandy felt more at ease. She then held onto Gu Mingming's arm and said, I feel that since he did something wrong, he should go to the platform of the deity's punishment and let the beast deity punish him. Gu Mingming agreed without hesitation. All right, I'll listen to you. Then I'll give you a chance to vent my anger on my behalf. Go and personally sentence him. Sandy nodded and walked in front of Cole with her chest puffed out. Just as she was about to speak, her eyes suddenly glazed over and there was not a single bit of light in her eyes. She felt as though her soul had been sucked out of her and she fell limply to the ground. Gu Mingming reacted quickly and caught Sandy. Bode also rushed over and took Sandy from Gu Mingming into the stone house. Gu Mingming looked at Cole, who was still smiling. The bewitching spell has been removed, so, do I have to go to the platform of the deity's punishment to receive the beast deity's punishment? If I kneel on the platform of the deity's punishment for 3 days and don't die, you won't be angry with me and Ali anymore? Gu Mingming laughed and said, Cole, you seem to be able to run horses on your forehead. Cole did not understand and tilted his head to look at Gu Mingming. Chapter 9:17. Cole was not a fool and naturally understood Gu Mingming's meaning. She was saying that she did not care whether he and Ellie had anything going on. His Agu really knew how to torture him. Just as he was about to say something, Lee's voice rang out behind him. How's the role-playing game going? Gu Mingming tilted her head and looked at Leah, who was behind Cole. He was in a sorry state and had countless wounds all over his body. And under his armpit was the unconscious Xianxian. Gu Mingming was taken aback. She immediately ran towards Leah and asked with concern, What happened? Leah gently hooked Gu Mingming's chin. Are you asking me or him? Gu Mingming knew that this he was referring to the unconscious Xianxian. She also knew that Leah was throwing a tantrum to ease her emotions. Gu Mingming took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. After calming herself down, she replied, I am asking you too, what is going on? Leah looked at Gu Mingming, who had calmed down in satisfaction. He then pointed at Cole. In order to impersonate me and experience life, this great Cole actually made Xianxian harm himself to pester me. He kept hurting himself and forced me to not leave him behind, but he forgot that I am a witch doctor. I have many ways to make a mere first-level beast docile. Harm himself? These 2 words made Gu Mingming's heart skip a beat. She subconsciously went to check on Xuanhuan's wounds. Leah held Gu Mingming's little hand. Don't worry. Although we wasted some time, he did not hurt himself. Gu Mingming then looked up and gently caressed Lee's face. He treasured this face the most. Now there were 2 hideous wounds below his eyes. They were just a finger's width away from his eyes. If they were just a little further away, his eyes would have been crippled. Gu Mingming's heart ached. She wanted to touch him but was afraid that it would hurt him. She could only ask softly, These wounds were caused by Xianxian? Leah nodded in grievance. He looked like a little wife who had been abused by her mother-in-law. Yet Xianxian scratched me. It was very painful. Before Gu Mingming could say anything, Lee's expression changed. He looked at Cole with a sinister and evil gaze and said, But this debt will be on Lord Cole. After all, it was you who instigated our family's immature child. Cole responded with the same sinister sneer. Of course it should be on my tab. In any case, the accounts between you and me are quite frequent. It doesn't make much difference if we add 1 more or 1 less. Leah was not angry, his voice was as calm as the night sky under the moonlight, so cold that it could penetrate one's bones. Then I have already returned. Can we end this game of pretending to be Leah for a day? Cole shook his head and said, I have already removed the bewitching spell from Sandy's body, so it's as if I have already paid for it. Naturally, I have to complete this 1-day trip to the end so that I won't feel wronged. Leah, oh? A disguise that has been seen through by everyone, what meaning is there in continuing to exist? Cole replied, So what if I see through you? Maybe Agu wants me to continue staying here? After all, the order I gave Xianxian was to keep you occupied for a day. Gu Mingming instantly understood what Cole meant. If she did not want Cole to stay, then Cole would hold Xianxian accountable for not completing his orders. But this child Xianxian was so loyal to Cole. In order to complete his orders, he did not hesitate to attack Leah and even hurt himself. But Chapter 9:18. I will let you stay but only for this day. Gu Mingming gritted her teeth. Cole smiled and nodded. All right. Gu Mingming glared at Cole. But you must promise not to make things difficult for Qixuan. Cole nodded and promised. I promise not to make things difficult for him because of this. Gu Mingming nodded and ignored Cole. She took Qixuan from Li's arms and handed him over to Elvis. Hubby, bring Qixuan back to the stone castle and settle him down. I want to stay behind and wait for Sandy to wake up. Let Leah accompany you. No matter how powerful she was, he would never learn to trust her. Gu Mingming nodded. Colin is injured. Leah can take a look at him. Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's brow and then carried Qixuan over his shoulder. He exchanged a look with Leah before leaving. Cole was treated like air by Gu Mingming the entire time. She could only see Leah. They clearly had the same face and body, but she could easily tell who was who between the two of them. How did she do it? Cole was getting more curious but did not pursue the matter. He just followed behind Gu Mingming wherever she went. Leah walked to Colin's side and pulled up his broken arm. He snorted and said with a look of disdain, useless. Colin lowered his head and did not dare to retort. Leah used a tree branch to fix Colin's arm in place. To think that you had to give up your position as the messenger's guard. You are just like a bear, placing you beside my Gu Mingming. You are really bringing down my Gu Mingming's glorious image. All right, Leah. Gu Mingming rarely saw Leah speak so sharply. Every word he said pierced right into someone's heart. Colin was just a third-level beast. Gu Mingming felt that he was already very manly for daring to stand in front of Cole to protect Sandy. This was an honorable injury and should not be treated like this by Leah. Leah turned to look at Gu Mingming with a resentful gaze. Your heart aches? Did you really like him back then? Gu Mingming pinched Li's waist harshly. What nonsense are you spouting? Is it something a human would do to steal one's best friend? What do you take me for? Leah immediately mumbled timidly, don't be angry, I won't say it, all right? As he spoke, Leah had already fixed Colin's hand in place. Unsure if it was intentional or not, Li's finger kept tapping on the fixed branch, causing Colin's entire arm to go numb. He gritted his teeth but did not dare to make a sound. You're not allowed to take this branch off. Keep it there until Sandy gives birth. Do you understand? After saying that, Leah then stopped tapping his fingers on the tree branch and pounced towards Gu Mingming, hugging her whole body. He rubbed the side of her face coquettishly and said, Mingming, I don't like it when you protect other males. I'm jealous. Gu Mingming felt helpless towards Li's unscrupulous words of jealousy. She could only turn around and stroke his head that was on her shoulder, saying, I'm not protecting Colin, it's just that, it's immoral to bully an injured person. Leah kissed the side of Gu Mingming's face and said, I'm not bullying him. I'm telling him that if he wants to protect his own female, sacrificing himself is not enough. Becoming stronger is the only way out. First, he has to have the ability to protect himself. Only then can he better protect the people important to him. Digression. Alright, today's update has ended. Chapter 9:19. A person who suppresses his own level and refuses to level up, using himself as a bait to teach others how to become stronger? Gu Mingming still felt angry and her heart ached when she recalled Li's decision. Leah smiled devilishly and poked Gu Mingming's little face with his finger. Then he straightened his joystick and hugged Gu Mingming in the crook of his arm. He smiled and said, Little fellow who loves to hold grudges, haven't I already changed? Moreover, our family situation is different from his. We have a strong enough Elvis in our family, that's why I dare to be a weak Leah. But in their family he is the strongest. If he becomes a crippled beast, Sandy's entire family's battle power will be greatly reduced. Throwing Sandy's safety to the back of one's mind for a moment of bravery is really stupid. Undeniably, Li's words were not wrong. From an objective point of view, Colin must ensure his own safety and raise his abilities as soon as possible. That was the greatest guarantee for Sandy. Sacrificing himself in exchange for Sandy's temporary safety today was indeed a reckless move. If they were not around today, Cole could have just killed Colin before going after Sandy. By then, would Sandy still have a way out? But in the face of danger, where would one have the time to think so much? He was just relying on his instincts to protect the people most important to him. Gu Mingming still felt that this was not something he should be scolded for. Colin did not want Gu Mingming and Leah to fight because of him, so he lowered his head and said in a naive voice, Gu Mingming, don't blame Leah. The only reason he's willing to treat me is because of your good relationship with Sandy. Usually, males in the tribe would fend for themselves when they are injured. If it wasn't for Leah, my arm would definitely be crippled. If I became a crippled beast, I would definitely leave on my own so as not to be a burden to Sandy. So, not only did Leah give me an arm, he also saved my life. Moreover, what he said is right, I must become stronger to protect Sandy. Fine, one was willing to take the hit while the other was willing to take the hit. It would seem like Gu Mingming was being a busybody. Gu Mingming smacked Colin's arm harshly, causing him to howl in pain. Gu Mingming, however, clapped her hands and said, "It's good that you know. Hurry up and improve your skills. If there's another situation where you are helpless when Sandy is in danger, I will bring Sandy away to stay with me." This time, not only Colin, even Leah had goosebumps all over his back. Sandy and Gu Mingming staying together? Then where would he and Elvis stay? What a joke. Glaring at Colin, Leah gritted his teeth and said, "You, from tomorrow onwards, take out half a day to report to Elvis for special training and quickly improve your abilities." Colin hurriedly nodded and promised, Okay, I will work hard." Gu Mingming could not be bothered with these two fellows and wanted to get down from Lee's arms to see Sandy, but Leah refused to let go. "It's rare that Elvis isn't around, let me hug him." "You want to see Sandy, don't you? I'll take you there." Sandy is a female. Gu Mingming was implying that it was not convenient for him to enter. But Leah smiled slyly and said, "I am a witch doctor." Gu Mingming facepalmed and thought to herself, "You are abusing your power to seek personal gains." Chapter 920. Sandy was still unconscious. Bode sat beside her, holding her little hand nervously. He stared at her intently, not moving an inch. Leah did not stand on ceremony at all and lifted his leg to kick Bode to the side. Bode looked at Leah and did not dare to make a sound. Firstly, Leah was a witch doctor and it was beneficial for Sandy that he was willing to take care of her. Secondly, he glanced at Gu Mingming, who was placed beside Sandy by Leah. She was the messenger of the beast deity, the biological daughter of the beast deity. She was the amalgamation of thousands of blessings. If she stayed by Sandy's side, she might bring her good luck. Moreover, perhaps the beast deity would look after Sandy and Gu Mingming because they were good friends? Most importantly, in Sandy's heart, Gu Mingming was even more important than her partners. If she woke up, she would definitely want to see Gu Mingming first. So, Bo did not say anything and just turned to walk out. He wanted to find some food to cook so that Sandy would not be hungry when she woke up and it would be too late. Gu Mingming did not have time to bother with Bode. She just held Sandy's little hand and gently stroked the stray hair on her forehead. She said softly, "Sandy, be good and don't make me worry. Quickly wake up, alright? You still have a baby in your tummy. It's not good for the baby if you sleep for too long. Didn't we agree that once your baby is born, you will recognize me as your godmother? You don't even know, my 4 little cubs have grown up and they don't even kiss me. I really miss the times when they were fluffy and acted like a spoiled child by my side. I plan to use the few in your tummy to satisfy my own fluffy fetish. So, quickly wake up, alright? Give birth to a few chubby and fluffy little fellows for me to play with?" Sandy seemed to have heard Gu Mingming's words. Her delicate brows furrowed before she slowly opened her eyes. She curled her lips and looked at Gu Mingming. She opened her mouth and only replied after a long while, "All right." Gu Mingming could not help but laugh. She helped Sandy sit up and teased, "You agreed just like that? Your mother's heart is really big." Sandy was also smiling. It was a good thing that Gu Mingming liked her child. Why would she not agree? With a slight headache, Sandy did not speak his mind. She used her hands to support her body as she sat up straight and looked at everyone in the room. When her gaze landed on Cole, Sandy shuddered and instinctively tightened her grip on Gu Mingming's hand. She looked at Cole warily. "Why are you here? What are you doing? Hutter and the rest? What did you do to the wolf pups? Give the wolf cub back to me, give it back to me." Gu Mingming hugged Sandy lightly and patted her back, saying, "Sandy, don't be afraid, I am here." Sandy's body stiffened and she allowed Gu Mingming to hug her. Then, her head was in a mess and she felt a sharp pain as if she was being stabbed by needles. After a long while, her thoughts slowly returned to normal. How she had been threatened by Cole to go out alone, how she had foolishly believed that Cole and Gu Mingming were partners, and how she had even helped Cole and Gu Mingming get together. Bit by bit, everything returned to normal. Chapter 921. What nonsense are you talking about? Gu Mingming rubbed Sandy's little head and said, "Don't think too much, as long as you are well, I will be at ease." Glancing at Bode, who was busy at the door, and Colin, who was holding a tree branch in his hand, Gu Mingming sighed and said, "Seeing that you are fine, I am relieved. I'll go back first. You and Colin take care of yourselves. When you've recovered, let's return to Saint Nazir." Sandy nodded and hugged Gu Mingming again. She did not get off the bed and just watched them leave. Cole followed Gu Mingming all the way. He knew that Gu Mingming didn't want to acknowledge him and that she didn't want to see him, but he just wanted to follow behind her. The fact that they had the same destination already made him happy. Returning to the stone castle, Gu Mingming saw Elvis stepping on Xixian. Gu Mingming's brows twitched. He had just come back and witnessed a scene of domestic violence. Elvis. Gu Mingming rarely called Elvis by his full name. Elvis's brows twitched as he felt that he could not explain himself. As long as it was something related to the four young ones, Gu Mingming would always stand firmly on their side regardless of whether they were right or wrong. Now that she had seen herself stepping on Xixian, even if he spouted all sorts of nonsense, he would still be in the wrong in her heart. You must feel wronged, far from it. After all, he had really beaten up Xixian. But his heart ached and he did not want Gu Mingming to be angry. Hence, Elvis immediately let go of Xixian without any principles and walked up to Gu Mingming to admit his mistake. Xiaoming, don't be angry. I was wrong. Cole was taken aback. He knew better than Leah what kind of person Elvis was. After all, he had watched him grow up. Actually, he had once wanted to groom Elvis to replace Peter as the leader of the stray beasts. Unfortunately, this brat was unromantic. So many females were stripped and thrown in front of him, but he actually treated them as food and ate them directly. A little brat who couldn't even break through the third-level boundary really couldn't take on such a big responsibility. But just based on his ruthlessness, Cole still had the intention to groom him. However, he actually ran away in the end, letting down his efforts of nurturing him down in vain. But the Elvis who jumped out of the pit covered in blood and devoured his only brother without saying a word, was now, as docile as a dog, immediately wagging his tail and begging for forgiveness when his master called his name? His Agu was really capable. Not only did she tame the unruly Ninth Highness, she even tamed the bloodthirsty Elvis. Gu Mingming had no time to care about what Cole was thinking. She just jumped down from Li's body and pushed Elvis aside to walk to Xianxuan's side. Seeing the bruises all over Xianxuan's body, her heart ached terribly. Xixian struggled free from Elvis's legs and wanted to retaliate, but when he saw Cole returning with Gu Mingming, he suppressed his anger and stood obediently at his original spot. He lowered his head to look at Gu Mingming and called out, "Mummy, sorry for making you worry." Chapter 922. Xixian didn't object and just stared straight at Cole. Gu Mingming pinched her brows and sighed. She also looked at Cole and braced herself. "Leah, what are you doing? Aren't you going to come over and let Xixian take a look?" Cole's lips curled into a faint smile. See how easy it was to control Gu Mingming. He didn't need to control Sandy and Oakley at all. Just Xixian alone could easily make her submit. Walking to Gu Mingming's side, Cole hesitated for a moment. But he still imitated Leah and rested his chin on Gu Mingming's shoulder. Gu Mingming, who was 172 meters tall, was really too short for him. Moreover, he was not as used to this action as Leah and Elvis. Even though he had practiced it countless times in his mind, it was his first time actually doing it. So he was still not used to it. The way he bent over made him look like a little lobster. Gu Mingming shrugged her shoulders impatiently. She glanced sideways at him. "Don't push your luck. My patience has always been short." Cole raised his hands and took 2 steps back in a surrendering manner. He smiled helplessly. "I just wanted to experience it, but I'm really not used to it." Gu Mingming ignored him. She just took the medicine from Leah and stuffed it into Cole's hands. "Apply the medicine on my son. If even a single scar is left on his body, I will skin you alive." "Is that a reward?" If she was the one who personally skinned him, Cole's lips curled up. It was as if he had thought of something exciting and interesting. Yeah, full of anticipation. Gu Mingming was really speechless. But for Xianxuan's sake, she had no choice but to tolerate it. Cole also knew when to stop. If he really angered her, he would definitely not be able to continue today's experience. He didn't want to give up so early on such an interesting experience. So Cole bent his knees and sat down. He patted his thighs. "Little Xian, come here. I will apply the medicine for you." "Yeah." Xixian was so docile that it was as if he wasn't the one who had wanted to fight Elvis with bloodshot eyes. He obediently lay on the ground with Cole's thighs as he allowed Cole to rub the herbs onto his body bit by bit. Even though the pain was so intense, he acted as if he couldn't feel it and didn't dodge at all. Gu Mingming's heart ached for her son, but there was nothing she could do. She could only turn to glare at Elvis and vent her anger. "You really don't feel heartache when you beat him up, right?" Elvis clearly knew that Gu Mingming was venting her anger on him, but he did not explain himself. He just wrapped his arms around her waist and brought her into his arms. He summoned his beast ears and fluttered them twice before lowering his head to deliver them to Gu Mingming. I know I was wrong. Let me let you pull my ears, alright? Gu Mingming's little hand touched Elvis's ears. She hardened her heart but couldn't bear to really pinch it. She only pulled it a few times before letting go. She straightened her neck and glared at Leah. Leah flew into Gu Mingming's arms. He rested his chin on Gu Mingming's knees and supported his cheeks with both hands. He looked up at Gu Mingming with his pure white beast ears quivering. He smiled in a fawning manner. Mingming, do you want to pinch my ears? You haven't pinched my ears in a long time. Here, pinch them. Gu Mingming was nestled in Elvis's arms, but this slut was lying on her knees. She frowned. Scram as far as Mars is. Chapter 923. Gu Mingming had a nosebleed. It was not because of Lee's teasing but because their current position was a little, indescribable. Elvis and Leah were both tall and muscular. She was nestled in Elvis's arms while Leah was sticking close to her. Be it Leah or Elvis, they could easily cover her up so tightly that no one could see a single strand of her hair. So, from any other angle, it looked like Leah was lying on Elvis's chest and muttering to herself. And because Elvis was looking down at Gu Mingming, the visual effect was that he was looking at Leah with a face full of love and adoration. F***K. Gu Mingming once again recalled the misunderstanding when she just transmigrated here. Leah and Elvis did not know what she was thinking about and just panicked when they saw her nosebleed. Elvis carried Gu Mingming and dashed out of the door without saying a word while Leah followed behind. If not for Cole's 5th level power, he might not even be able to see how the two of them ran out. What happened? Cole did not understand, but he still stood up and chased after Elvis and Leah. There was no stream near Solder, so Elvis ran a little further this time. When he finally reached the stream, he carried Gu Mingming and jumped in without saying a word. Gu Mingming was dumbfounded the entire time. She did not know why Elvis ran, and in order to not have a stomach full of wind, she could only keep her mouth shut tightly. Finally, Elvis stopped, and before she could even say, "What happened?" both of them fell into the water with a splash. They choked and coughed non-stop. Leah, who was following closely behind, patted her back to soothe her breathing while asking with a face full of concern, "How are you? Do you feel better after soaking in the stream?" Gu Mingming coughed until tears came out, and she really could not find the time to answer Lee's question. Finally, she stopped coughing and stared at Elvis and Leah with her big watery eyes, who were looking at her as if she was a terminally ill patient. She said, "Who can tell me what happened?" Elvis held Gu Mingming's chin and stared at her nose. He watched as the glaring redness flowed down the water on her face and into the corner of her lips. His heart ached as if it was being pricked by thousands of needles. Gu Mingming tasted a fishy sweetness in her mouth. She touched it with her hand and saw that it was blood. He was stunned for 2 seconds before he asked, "Don't tell me you're so nervous just because I had a nosebleed." Elvis and Leah nodded their heads firmly under Gu Mingming's expectant gaze. Gu Mingming was especially speechless. She pinched her nose with one hand and dabbed the water on her forehead and nose with the other, ignoring them for the time being. She raised her head for a long while to make sure that her nosebleed had stopped before lowering her head. She wanted to scold them, but when she met Elvis's and Lee's crazed eyes, she swallowed back her words. She lifted her nose to show it to the two of them and said, "It's all right, it's not bleeding anymore. Look, it's done." Her eyes stared fixedly at Gu Mingming's nose for a long time before Gu Mingming heard 2 long sighs of relief. Gu Mingming chuckled. The two of them were so used to killing that they would not even blink even if their own flesh was torn apart. Yet they almost went crazy because of her nosebleed. They were really drunk. Chapter 924. We're not going back to the stone castle, it's too far. Elvis said to Leah, "Find a cave nearby, dig one if there's no suitable one. We'll stay by the stream from now on." Gu Mingming exclaimed, Hey, wait a while. Why do we have to stay by the stream? My sons are still in the stone castle. We'll go back to fetch them after we've settled down," Elvis said as he carried Gu Mingming towards the shore. They had come out in a hurry and did not bring any beast skin, so Elvis could only use his tail to wrap Gu Mingming tightly to prevent her from getting sick from the wind after entering the water. Gu Mingming had not seen Elvis pull such a long face at her for a long time, so she felt a little apprehensive. Wasn't it just a nosebleed? It's not like he was cheating on her, why was he so fierce? "That, hubby, why are you angry?" Gu Mingming asked carefully. Elvis stopped in his tracks and looked at Gu Mingming with a complicated and deep gaze. He said word by word in a hoarse voice, I'm not angry, I'm afraid. Gu Mingming then looked at Cole, who had been following them all along. She pondered for a moment and felt that it was not possible, but she still opened her mouth to test him. Are you afraid of Cole? Elvis laughed scornfully as a reply. Gu Mingming thought so too. Elvis had dared to fight Cole head-on when he was 3rd level, not to mention now. But, then what are you afraid of? Why do you have to stay by the stream? Gu Mingming really could not understand. Elvis's blue eyes seemed to contain a bottomless black hole, that whirlpool engulfing her within. His voice was very soft, but every word landed on Gu Mingming's heart. You're bleeding, I'm afraid I'll lose you. Gu Mingming's heart trembled. Bleeding? Gu Mingming thought about it and understood. She asked, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, because I'm having a nosebleed, so you think I'm dying? Xiameng. This was the first time Elvis shouted at her so sternly. Although it was only 2 words and it was just her name, it was the harshest thing he had ever said to her. But not only was Gu Mingming not afraid, she even laughed out loud. Wrapping her arms around Elvis's neck, she said softly, Silly hubby, my nose is bleeding because we have been eating too much barbecued meat recently. In addition, you were afraid that I would be cold at night, so you always lit a fire in the room to roast me. That's all. My body is very good. I won't die. Don't be afraid. Elvis was skeptical of Gu Mingming's explanation. They ate and lived together with Gu Mingming, but why did he, Leah and even the 3 little ones not have a nosebleed but Gu Mingming did? Gu Mingming seemed to have seen through Elvis's thoughts and said, You guys are males, so you must be more patient than me. I'm so delicate, don't you think? Actually, Gu Mingming was mocking herself when she said the word, delicate. It was mainly to ease the atmosphere and make Elvis and Leah happy. However, when Elvis and Leah thought about it seriously and nodded their heads in agreement, Gu Mingming blushed. She said she was delicate. She probably didn't want her face anymore in the future. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming tightly in his arms as if he was still worried. He insisted, Stay by the stream for a few days. I'll bring you back to the stone castle after I'm sure you're fine. Chapter 925. Banning barbecued meat from the menu? Gu Mingming could almost imagine Oraton's murderous expression when he heard this news. When they slept, the 2 of them hugged her together. Wouldn't the attacks she had to endure be multiplied when he unleashed his beastly nature? Was having a nosebleed a heinous crime? Why did he have to punish her like this? Sob sob sob. I'll confess I lied. Gu Mingming put on a pitiful and sincere look as she admitted her mistake. I saw you and Elvis being too close and thought of some indescribable things, that's why I had a nosebleed. I promised to control my imagination and not to let my imagination run wild in the future. Can we just pretend that nothing happened? Leah was taken aback for a moment, then he reached out and knocked Gu Mingming's head. I've already mated with you, you actually still want to push me to someone else? Elvis is not someone else. Gu Mingming mumbled softly. Gu Mingming. Leah gritted his teeth, growling her full name. Seeing her nosebleed just now, both his and Elvis's hearts almost stopped beating in fear. Heaven knew how afraid they were of losing her just like that, but her nosebleed was actually because she was fantasizing about those things again. I was wrong. Gu Mingming lowered her head, not daring to talk back. Leah clenched his fists, really wanting to crush her to death. But before he even lifted his hand, he already knew that he could not bear to hurt even a single strand of her hair. Looking up at Elvis, Leah said unhappily, You're the first partner, aren't you going to do anything about it? Elvis's face was black the entire time, only heaven knew that his teeth were about to bleed from clenching so hard. He only replied coldly, Even you can't do anything to her, but you think I can? Leah glanced at Cole, who was watching the show from the corner of his eyes. His face full of surprise really pissed him off. Wait a minute, Cole? Leah suddenly laughed and said, I'm really not in a good mood, why don't we go home and train the 4 little ones? I feel that although your father's method of training you was a little cruel, it's not completely without merit. With some slight modifications, it would definitely be suitable for Huda and his brothers. Elvis and Leah had worked together for many years and only needed a second to understand each other. Hence, he curled his lips and revealed a cold smile. That's good too. I couldn't do anything to their mother, so I could only vent my anger on the 4 of them. It was only right and proper for a son to repay a mother's debt. I suddenly feel that I can understand what Peter did back then. Gu Mingming was really starting to have goosebumps. However, she was certain that the 2 of them were just scaring her. If they really treated the 4 little ones like that, she wouldn't just be upset. She would go crazy. Of course they would be reluctant to do so. but their expressions were too *king scary. Even though she knew that there was a 9,999% chance that it was just an act, Gu Mingming did not dare to bet on that 0.1% chance. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis's neck and begged for mercy. "Hubby, I was wrong, I was really wrong. I won't let my thoughts run wild in the future. Don't treat our sons like this, I beg you, why don't you just punish me, dig a hole and bury me inside, sobs, hubby, after burying me please let our sons off." Elvis was unmoved and just stared coldly at Gu Mingming. Chapter 926. How long had it been since she called him Daddy Leah? He had tried to coax her to call him that when he was in a trance, but she refused. Now, how could he bear to really make her sad? He was just scaring her as punishment. But, any kind of punishment? What kind of fox would he be if he didn't reject a gift that was delivered right to his doorstep? Any kind of punishment? Leah suppressed the urge to smile and asked in a cold voice. Gu Mingming nodded her head vigorously and said, "As long as you don't bully my sons, I will accept any kind of punishment." Leah then tapped Gu Mingming's little nose with a chuckle and said, "Remember your promise. If you dare to go back on it, I will put the blame on Huda and his brothers." "I don't dare to, I definitely won't go back on it." Gu Mingming hurriedly waved her hands and shook her head, being extremely obedient. Leah gave Elvis a look and the two of them tacitly decided to forget about this matter. After all, if they continued teasing her and she really cried, they would be the ones who would feel heartache. Seeing that her man's expression had softened, Gu Mingming was not too worried that she had sold herself out with her promise just now. After all, no matter how the two of them punished her, it was done on the basis of love and they would not really do anything to her. Gu Mingming probably described Gu Mingming's current state. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and asked with a smile, trying to please him, "Then can you tell me now, why did you throw me into the stream?" "I choked just now." Elvis had seen it when she choked on the water. At that time he was worried about her nosebleed and did not have time to worry about it. Now his heart really ached for her. Gently rubbing her little head, he said, "I remember the last time you had a nosebleed, you went to the stream and soaked yourself in the water, then you recovered. So, the moment I saw your nosebleed, I immediately brought you to the stream." The last time, Gu Mingming tried her best to recall that she had also had a nosebleed when she had just arrived in the beast world. At that time she had just gotten to know Sandy and that lass had chased after Elvis as if she was about to die, attracting the attention of everyone in the tribe. She had a nosebleed and looked as if she was bidding farewell to a corpse. Thinking of that scene, Gu Mingming could not help but smile again. Her little head swayed and her eyes shone brightly. Elvis did not know what Gu Mingming was thinking about, but seeing her smile, the corners of his lips curled up unknowingly. When Gu Mingming snapped back from her memories, she met Elvis's deep and affectionate eyes. Gu Mingming's heart ached at the thought of how flustered he was just now. Because of her nosebleed, Elvis and Leah might really be frightened. To prevent such a thing from happening again, Gu Mingming decided to teach them the correct way to handle a nosebleed. After saying that, Elvis and Leah looked at each other. It turned out that as long as he splashed water on his forehead and nose bridge, and then raised his head, he would be fine. So, why did they run to the stream in such a hurry? On the way back they met Xianxia and Oakley who were chasing after them. Chapter 927. Gu Mingming suddenly felt that she could not understand Oakley at all. He had always acted as if he was her enemy. That look that said no one could stop him from joining forces with Cole to unify the beast world made Gu Mingming bitterly disappointed. But just now, she was very sure that Oakley's bloodshot eyes and worried expression were not faked. Faking he could not fake those minor details. It should be said that it was all thanks to Wang Xiaoxing. Because of her professional knowledge, Gu Mingming had a certain level of understanding of a person's micro-expressions. The success rate of lying in front of her now was extremely low. She did not know what Oakley was up to, but she knew that this friend still cared about her. This made Gu Mingming feel very comforted. Smiling, Gu Mingming replied, "I'm fine, just a little nosebleed." Elvis and Leah were too nervous and caused such a commotion. "Tell everyone to go back, it's fine now." "Yes." Oakley took another look at Gu Mingming, before turning around resolutely, hiding all his concern deep in his heart. Did he not dare to show any concern for her? It was impossible for him to be guarding against Leah and Elvis, so he could only be guarding against Cole. Was he not joining forces with Cole? What was he trying to deceive Cole about? Was it related to her? Gu Mingming could not figure it out, but it was not her place to probe further. Cole was too smart, especially when it came to manipulating people's hearts. No matter what Oakley was plotting, the chances of success were not high. At this moment, the least she could do was not to spoil his plans. So Gu Mingming kept her mouth shut and did not call Oakley. Instead, she allowed him to leave her sight and call her tribesmen back to the city. When she returned to the stone castle, the three little ones and Burke were waiting at the entrance. Seeing her return from afar, the three little ones pounced towards her. "Mummy, what happened? Why did everyone say that you died?" "Died?" Gu Mingming face-palmed. She had really witnessed the true meaning of rumors. Saying that she was dying because of a nosebleed, why not say that she had exploded on the spot? Gu Mingming jumped down from Elvis's arms and hugged the three little ones in her arms. She comforted them gently and said, "Don't listen to their nonsense. I have your father Beast and father Leah protecting me. How can I die?" Hada patted Kanwu and said, "That's right. Moreover, Mother is the messenger of the beast deity. She said she has someone protecting her." Gu Mingming was tickled by Hada's grown-up look and added, "That's right, Mummy has people above me." Seeing that Gu Mingming was fine, Kanwu was relieved. He teased Hada, I wonder who was the one who looked as though he was struck by lightning." His eyes were dripping with oil. "Does that mean Hada cried just now?" Hada blushed and said, "Don't talk nonsense, I didn't." Jianghu shook his head and took out a piece of beast skin from the house to pass to Gu Mingming. "Mummy, you are drenched. Wrap it up with the beast skin first. Don't fall sick." Gu Mingming nodded and took the beast skin from her son to wrap herself up. Then she kissed Jiaoyu's little head and said, "Our Jiaoyu is so considerate." Jiaoyu chuckled and turned to look at Cole. "Father Leah, aren't you going to boil the water? My mummy is freezing." Cole was first taken aback before he smiled and said, "All right, I'll go boil the water. Aside from the topic, my babies, it's the end of the month. The tickets don't have to expire. Give them to me on account of how hard I worked to save them. Yeah. Babies, today's update has ended." Chapter 928. Gu Mingming tugged at Jiaoyu's hand. "Jiaoyu isn't he?" Jiaoyu smiled slyly and said, "I know." "You know?" Jiaoyu nodded and said, "I can tell from the way he looks at you. Daddy Leah would never stare at you with that kind of shifty gaze." Gu Mingming chuckled and pinched Jiaoyu's little nose. "Then why did you ask him to boil water?" Jiaoyu shrugged his shoulders and said, "It would be a waste not to make use of a coolie that was delivered to my doorstep." With that, he pulled Gu Mingming's little hand and walked into the house. As he walked, he said, "Let's go in first. If she really gets sick later, we will have to worry." Gu Mingming was pulled by Jiaoyu and Kanwu into the stone castle with one hand each. Hada followed behind Gu Mingming silently and turned to look at Qixin, who had walked over to Cole's side to help. Even though Qixin looked like a 17 or 18-year-old lad and he looked like a 6 or 7-year-old child. But he knew that it was his younger brother, a brother who was very close to the enemy. Elvis's ginger slices boiled water resurfaced and Gu Mingming drank 2 whole bowls of it before Elvis stopped. Although Jiaoyu had ordered Cole to boil the water, Qixin was actually the one who boiled the bathwater for Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming had no qualms about enjoying her son's care. At least it was more comfortable than the bathwater Cole boiled for her. The rooms on the second floor were Gu Mingming's bottom line. She would never allow Cole to step foot on the second floor. And Cole did not insist. He just sat beside the fire pit in the hall on the first floor and looked at the dancing flames, deep in thought. He felt that Gu Mingming was becoming more interesting. She had clearly tamed Leah and Elvis, but when they were by the stream, she was like a docile and harmless little rabbit, cozying up to those two fellows in a pitiful manner. She had the strength of a beast king. A single slap would have been enough to make these two fellows submit, but they had to swallow their anger and beg for mercy. Cole, who had witnessed everything from the shore, could clearly remember the surging feeling in his chest at that time. Jealousy. It was a unique kind of jealousy. He had never been so jealous of Leah before. Even when he was ignored by everyone and Leah was the center of attention, his jealousy was not as strong as now. No one in the entire beast world could compare to her gentle eyes. He really did want her. Just thinking about how that pair of eyes would one day be branded on his body without moving an inch, just thinking about it made him very excited. This night, Cole did not stay in the stone castle. Instead, he walked out after midnight. No one cared where he went. All they knew was that he had returned to the stone castle the next morning. Last night, a tribe was attacked by stray beasts. Not a single person in the tribe survived. The tribe's most beautiful female died in her own cave.